You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. John Lennon prophetically saying that life is what happens while you're busy making plans. Our show today will be a little bit different than the norm, as John and I will mostly bow out of the conversation as we welcome photographers Nancy Borowick and Adriane Ohanesian. Our thoughts are to let two photographers, two friends, just talk about their life in photography at this point in time. Adriane and Nancy have been friends since they studied together at the International Center of Photography and have remained close, watching each other's careers take off, both winning World Press Photo Awards, for example, and helping each other through difficult moments in their lives and careers. Adriane has spent the better part of her career covering stories in Africa. She has worked in South Sudan, Somalia, Congo, covering conflict, refugee crisis, and illegal mining. To say she's been in very dangerous and desperate situations would be an understatement. Nancy Borowick is an editorial and documentary photographer whose work has appeared in the New York Times, National Geographic, and Time magazine. Her 2017 book, The Family Imprint, chronicled her parents' parallel treatments for stage 4 cancer and their ultimate deaths due to their illnesses. Needless to say, their photo work has not insulated them from the sadness of the world. If anything, they have faced tragedy with an unflinching eye and steady hand. So a decade into their successful photo careers, we asked them to hit the pause button for a moment and speak with each other on the state of photography in their lives and reflect on what the next 10 years might hold. For both Nancy and Adriane, 2019 was a year filled with joys and challenges that will forever shape their lives. Nancy welcomed her first baby in October, and in that same month, Adriane survived a plane crash in Kenya from which she is still recovering. With these major life events as a backdrop and facing the difficulties of maintaining a photo career in a tough industry that is particularly hard on freelance photojournalists, we asked Nancy and Adriane to share their thoughts on their lives and careers in what is still a male-dominated industry. Adriane and Nancy, welcome back to our show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you guys back.
Why don't we just start with what you thought you would be doing when you when you signed up for ICP? Did you think you'd be covering war and conflict or photographing your parents?
And again, this goes back, a decade, right?
Yeah, you guys,
yeah, exactly.
10 years,
so
okay.
Yeah.
We were at ICP from
Okay,
2009
Adriane,
to 2010.
Is Adriane talking, just to throw that on there?
Yes.
Adriane, you want to start? Yeah.
So yeah, we were at ICP from 2009 to 2010. And I think even our stories in the beginning are completely different. I know Nancy had dreamed of going there and was already a really well established photographer in my eyes. I didn't get
No way.
I didn't get into ICP. I was rejected from ICP, and I had to go in and I had to beg to get a place on the program. And I went in and sat behind the desk with my portfolio and was like, "Look, this is what I've taken. I don't really know what I'm doing, but look at these are my photos." And she was like, "Okay, you can come here, but you have to promise me that when you leave, you're actually going to work as a photographer." And I was like, "Yes, I promise. Just let me in." And that's how I got in. I was not accepted.
That
to the
is
program.
amazing. I don't think I knew that. Yeah. I love that. I love that story. Well, and I mean, I did get in, and I remember sitting in a cafe when I got the email, and I could not believe it. And I was so excited and so nervous. And I think we met on the first day. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I feel like we were so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, so eager and maybe a bit naive about what it meant to work as a professional photographer. But in some ways, maybe that was good, being really idealistic and believing we can do everything, because I think that's how we pushed ourselves.
That might have been how you felt at the time. How I felt at the time was like, oh my gosh, everyone here knows what they're doing, and I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. But also there's, and this is consistent throughout the entire industry, which is for me at least, you always think everyone else knows exactly what they're doing, and you're the only one trying to figure things out as you go along. And that people are more advanced, and you want to look at one person's path and be like, "Oh, that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it like so-and-so did." And they picked up a camera and they went to Africa and they worked for National Geographic and lived happily ever after. You're like, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. And
then 10 years later, you're living in Africa, working for National Geographic. So there you go.
Right. But at the time, I didn't get into photo school. So Who knows?
But
right?
I think that speaks to your resilience because so much of this industry is, it's always a no unless you ask. It's always a no unless you try. And you had a dream to go through photo school and then go back to Africa and work on the projects that you were passionate about, even though maybe you didn't necessarily feel that encouraged or that confident about it, but you had passion and you had drive, and you were like, I'm going to prove it to myself and I'm going to prove it to other people that this is important to me and I want to make a difference. And it's always been amazing watching you because I've been here stateside mainly, working on projects, in my backyard, dreaming of working on projects far away, and I felt very comfortable knowing that it was okay that I wasn't, photographing certain stories because I knew you were out there telling those stories and being that megaphone for people who didn't have a voice, and that was just, yeah.
But it's funny that you say, like, looking back on it now, like, I did have this idea that I wanted to go, and I say back to Africa because I've been before, not photographing, but it's where I wanted to be. And, like, I knew that's what I was going to do, but, like, only recently, I think you told me, like, no one else in the program or none of the teachers actually believed that that's what I was going to do and actually follow through with it. Like, in my mind, I was like, of course, that's where I'm going to end up. That's what I want to do. That's what I think's important.
Yeah.
But it never even occurred to me. Everyone was like, whatever. Like, everyone
I don't think people were necessarily, but yeah, I think everyone dreamed big. And there were many people in our program who were like, I want to go cover war. And that's how I'm going to make it in this industry. And I'm just really proud of you for holding your own and paving your own path. Because that's the nature of this industry in my mind. You're a one-woman show, and your successes, and I think my successes have been largely a result of me pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to make opportunities for myself, and not just waiting around for someone to call and give me a chance.
Have you guys seen anybody who doesn't fit that mold who's been able to just walk into a photo career?
I guess not. No, I don't think so.
I think if we do, we would talk badly about them, and we don't want us to bring up their names. No, I don't think anybody just does anything. And I think some people are better at presenting themselves in such a way that, I just showed up and I just got the job and everything is
There's a lot to what you just
hunky-dory.
said, by the way. There are some people who have the knack who just could walk into a situation and make things happen.
Yeah, and I am slightly jealous of that because I can't tell a lie. If I try to lie to you right now, my face will just be distorted and it won't work. I can't pretend to be someone I'm not. I can't present myself in a way. That's just not how I operate. So I am almost jealous of these people who have that confidence to just show up and, like, I know how to do this job and I've never lit anything before, but I'm going to go in with all my lights and set it up and look professional. And that's part of the game as well. Of, like,
Yeah, but the trick is you have to pull it off too.
yeah, true.
And you only get one shot at that. That's the difference.
And Nancy, what did you think you'd be shooting when you started at ICP? What was your hope?
When I started at ICP, I had worked a little bit for an NGO before my program. And so long story short, I ended up teaching photography at a school in rural Ghana for a couple of months through a connection with a friend. I fell in love with the school and the students and decided that I was going to go back to New York and use my photography to help raise money to build a well at the school. Mm-hmm. I was 23, thought I was unstoppable. And
You were unstoppable.
I had a job digging wells when I was 23,
Where were you 10 years ago? I couldn't really. And I ended up selling my images, which I look back now and they're terrible. But people bought them and helped raise some money to build this well. And in that moment, I realized that my photographs could actually teach people and make a real difference in someone else's life. And so then when I went to ICP, I was like, I need to hone my skills. I need to develop more as a storyteller and a photographer. And then I want to continue doing that kind of work.
And I think that's one of the things we bonded over at ICP, actually, because you had done work in West Africa and I was interested in going back to East Africa. And again, there is this idea of like, you need to take off and do something grand and hardcore and all these things. But I mean,
To establish yourself, but
yeah, to prove yourself, or that idea of being a foreign correspondent and what that looks like.
right.
And like, heaven forbid there be two ways to get to that end point. It appears like there's one path in front of you, and that's how you have to go.
And that was sort of the example that we had seen ahead of us in photographers we admired. So like, it felt like that was the only way forward. But then in my situation, I was thinking about going back to West Africa, and then my mom got sick. And it was obvious that I needed to stay in New York and be with her. And I remember thinking, well, this might completely derail my career, but it's worth it to me. And now looking back, 5, 6, 7 years later, it is what made my career, staying back and literally photographing in my backyard. And I wouldn't change that for the world. I got all this time with my parents.
I distinctly remember working on our year-end project, or whatever it was called. And you had been photographing a refugee family in New York, and you'd also been photographing your mother. And we each had to bring in like 3 ideas of possible projects and put them up on the wall. And it was like literally pictures of your mother next to pictures of this refugee family. And it was like, which path should I take? Where should I go? And we ended up like, everyone's like, no, Nancy, like,
you have to photograph your mother.
yeah, stay with your mother. And we weren't even looking at it from an emotional perspective, which is like hard, obviously. You'll never be able to separate yourself from the two. But we were looking at it as like, these images are better. Like, I don't know who that woman is, but these images are better than what you're doing with this refugee family. But still in the back of your head, you're like, but to be a photographer, I need to follow this refugee family. I need to go home with these people
like,
that I don't know.
What's so interesting about my family? Like, why is anyone going to care about this story that I'm how can I care more about this story that I'm working on? It's sometimes really hard to look at your own life and see it as anything other than your own life and as interesting or unique.
And then wonder if anybody else would really be interested in this at all, and why would they be?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I was lucky because as I was shooting my mom while she was going through it was her first recurrence with breast cancer, so the second time with the disease, I would come back after each shoot and I'd be with I come back to class and I put up contact sheets. And it was wonderful because I not only got I got objective feedback on the images themselves, I had this amazing community supporting me and guiding me in this very intimate personal project. I often, think back to my time at ICP as like integral in my own therapy through this experience because it was consistent and regular. I would shoot my family, I'd come back to school, and then I'd have my family at school kind of supporting me, encouraging me, like critiquing me. And it was very much like a symbiotic relationship that helped me get through it and bring me ultimately to the point when I was ready to photograph both my parents years later.
Something that just came to mind is one of my teachers back in high school, and I've said this before, and it's a great thing to keep in mind, is that when you're dealing with an assignment, okay, or anything in life, quite often, once you know your limitations, what you can't do, everything else is possible. Yeah. And if anything, your limitations are the parameters that give you a framework to move forward. Because if you have no parameters, if you have no limitations, you don't know where to start.
And sometimes you're kind of in your own way.
Exactly.
They're always in your own way.
So your limitations, basically, your parents were in a really, really bad situation that's not good for anybody, but you took it and you created something of value from it that people have takeaways from. That's success.
Yeah. No, it was a journey, and to feel like the work that I created with my family impacted and helped other people, especially other people going through something similar, kind of reaffirmed for me why I love photography and how impactful and powerful and meaningful it can be as a tool.
But not just anyone can do that, right? Like, it takes you personally to be able to do that. Because you can say this about any story, which is like, why should anyone care about this story?
Yeah.
And anyone can go out and take those photos, but it's a whole nother mission to make people care about those stories.
Yeah.
And like, what you've done, you photographed your parents.
Yeah.
maybe people could have done that. But like the way in which you've made people care about those photographs and care about that story is like a whole nother set of skills and set of talents. So,
well, that's a part of why we do what we do. It's like you're not just going out there to shoot something. You're going out there, to tell an important story and then make people listen.
Right.
I feel like I think of, will you tell the story of the girl, the burn victim that you had won the award for with World Press? Because I kind of need a refresher and then I want to talk about it.
No, but I think it's just, like I said, any story is there. It's just like, how do you make people care about it? And how do you illustrate it in such a way that people will care about it? And that's, and
if you as the storyteller maybe don't care about it, it will translate into your images, which is why when you do care about something, you can feel it in your work. And will you please just tell the story?
Well, I think that was,
because I feel like that was a really important story to you. And you shed such an important light on the situation out there. And
maybe we can back up.
Okay,
hold
sorry.
on. No, it's okay. 'Cause I just want to get you to Africa.
Okay, yeah.
So you're in ICP, which is a 2-year program.
1-year program.
By the time you got done with it, did whoever let you in change their tune, or were you much more sure of what you wanted to do at that point? Just kind of walk us through a little bit of that transition that might have came during school and the help you might have got from people around you.
It's nice, like, looking back on these things to say, like, I had a clear plan. I knew what I was going to do. I knew how I was going to do it. I knew I wanted to be in Sudan because I was interested in Sudan. I loved the people. The people were very interested in me, and I enjoyed working there. When I'd been there the first couple of times, I didn't know how to take photographs. But I learned slowly over the last 10 years, maybe, how to take a photo. But I knew that's where I wanted to be, and I didn't know how to make a career work, and I didn't know who I should be emailing when I got on the ground or anything like that, but I knew where I wanted to be. So that's at least a start. And I was lucky because where I wanted to be, no one else really wanted to be at the time. So that was a foot in the door.
So nothing in the year at ICP deterred you or made you think about changing course?
I think you proved yourself, though. I feel like you took boring assignments and turned them into magic. You were like, I'm not just this like whatever photographer from upstate New York.
But I struggled through ICP and
we all did.
And I think it's like anything in this industry as well. It's like no one's going to take you seriously until you prove yourself, and the only person you have to rely on is yourself.
Well, it takes some people years, more than just to age 25 or 30 to learn that. So how do you think?
Beaten into me.
Or you got kicked in the pants enough times to realize it, yeah.
There's a certain aspect of it moving out of your comfort zone where like you have no other option but to succeed. And succeed is like, I use that term very loosely. Succeed means you can pay your rent, you can eat something fancy once in a while.
You could answer the phone without breaking into a sweat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think actually one of the things that you and I share is that we're both kind of competitive, and we're competitive with ourselves, and that sort of pushes. I don't know. I feel like I remember thinking you were like, I can do this, and I'm gonna prove to people that like I deserve to be there, and you didn't let anything stop you. Yeah, so your gear was stolen, or you were ambushed like and stuck in a ditch during gunfire for a couple of days. Like you're like nothing stops you, and that always just resilience is an important quality to have as a photographer and as a photojournalist, and that takes time, I think, to like fully develop. But I don't know. I've been watching you from afar since we've been so far away for so many years. I've seen you, just watched you prove time and time again, just like how much of a freaking badass you are. That's all. I just want to say that. I'm just fangirling all over Adriane.
Do you feel that same way? Do you feel that same badass quality? That that she just said, or no?
Nancy is a badass. No, but I mean, what I think you're saying is like, you have to be really strong to be able to be so critical of yourself and keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and you weren't even just critical of yourself. You had an entire community that was critical of your photos that were of your parents going through cancer treatment and the funerals. And to put your photos on a wall, back up from that and say, oh, that like photo of my father's funeral could have been shot in a better way. Like the mental space and like that takes and the emotional space that takes to say that about your own photos, much less have other people tell you how you should have been feeling at the time and how you should have been photographing, is like, that blows my mind.
Did that come up at all when you had your exhibitions? Because I mean, that would blow me away if it did. But
No, I mean, people tried to, because I wanted constructive feedback. And people, I think, were very,
it's a touchy subject.
yeah, people were careful, and I appreciated
personal,
that.
yeah.
Right, because they were looking out for me, but wanting to help me grow. There were moments, like when I was shooting while I was a student, I don't know, people had different opinions, and I appreciated them voicing them to me, but I was lucky because people weren't particularly critical. I think they were sensitive to my feelings, but I appreciated that they were able to give me advice, even though it was so personal. Like I look back at the images that I photographed that I took of my mom during that time, and I can objectively say they could have been better. And we all do that when we look back at our old work. Like I could have framed them better. Why did I shoot everything from that distance and from that perspective? I think it's important to share your work with other people and get perspective, and especially objective perspective, because sometimes you're way too close to the story. And one thing I really appreciated was people offering that objective perspective, being like, have you thought about photographing this? Or like, what happened in this moment? Because I was almost blind to certain things because it was just my life unfolding.
But
Go ahead.
I was just gonna, you do get that a lot though, even when you're editing any type of work where a photographer will become so emotionally attached to a photograph.
Yeah.
And everyone else is looking at this photograph like, you have a great story that surrounds this photograph, and like how you were feeling at the time was,
But it's not your
very
strongest.
emotional, but like, to me, this means nothing,
And and it's hard to not take it personally, but it's important to hear what they have to say and make the decision for yourself if it stands the test.
Yeah.
When you were taking the pictures, did you think about who the audience would be, the most important audience for those photos?
No, when I was so I'm fast forwarding a little bit past ICP when my dad was diagnosed, which was a few years later. I never thought about the audience because in my mind, this project was a personal journal, and I didn't feel like I had no medical experience or expertise. That I couldn't heal my parents, but I could document our story, and I could spend time with them, and I could advocate for them, and the photographs were just a part of the puzzle. It wasn't. I really did not intend to share them, and it wasn't until I did share them with a mentor, a former teacher of ours from ICP, Judith Levitt, because I felt like I was too close to the story, and I was worried once my parents passed away, I'd look back and wish that I had shot certain things. I was thinking like a photographer. I had my photographer hat on, not my daughter hat, and she had suggested that I share the work in a more public way, that it might help people and comfort people. And the audience was always really just me. Like it was really just for me. But once I did approach that idea and ultimately shared the work, I realized that, again, that photography can be so powerful, and to give it, more life in a public way, in a capacity that can teach people and help people, and start a conversation or reframe a narrative.
Did you share them with your parents? Did you show them?
Oh, yeah. I shared the images with my parents as I was shooting them. I wanted to make sure that they understood the way I was seeing our life and seeing them. And they were pretty receptive to that. there were moments when I know my mom would look and be like, I don't even know what I look like right now. I don't look like a man or a woman.
I was going to ask you how they were affected by that because, you know, you look at a picture of yourself, we don't imagine ourselves the way we really are quite often.
Yeah, I think it was difficult at times for them to see the images of themselves, but they kept letting me photograph them. They felt like if this was something that was helping me process what they were going through, then what did they have to lose? And they felt the same way about publishing the work. They're like, if this is going to help you personally, professionally, and if this is going to help other people in some way, like, what do we have to lose? I think that's a big takeaway at the end of your life when you realize
The great final gift.
Yeah, the great final gift. And I think it actually gave them and their lives and their deaths greater meaning and purpose. Like, it wasn't all in vain. They were able to leave a stamp on this world in some capacity, and it's my honor to get to carry that on. And,
But that's a lot about what our job is confronting the things head on that you may not want to see. And like, those are the facts of the situation that are in front of you. Because I've been in situations many times where it's funny, it's never the person, for me, this is my experience, there's never the person themselves that will stop you. It's other people around who don't want that moment to be captured because they think it's horrific or depressing. Or so it's so interesting. I feel like the subjects a lot of times understand why you're photographing them. And then there's a lot of noise around that of people saying, don't look at this, turn away. You know, we don't want to remember this moment.
Well, the editorializing going around the periphery.
Absolutely. And I've never had that happen with the actual subject that I'm photographing. Because I think that person realizes what they're going through. And I'm sure you had certain situations with your parents where like, okay, this is getting annoying, like enough is enough. But all the people around the idea of how horrible this is and how we shouldn't be looking at this for some reason can influence your direct look at the subject.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Maybe we can flash forward a little bit to, you've been working now, your series are in development, they're getting some attention in a positive way. Your work is getting recognized. Did you feel at that moment, any moments you're like, wow, this is what I wanted to do, and here I am, and it's great. Obviously, you're seeing difficult things and you're documenting, real tragedies, but did you feel like, okay, here we are, I'm happy. This is what I want to do.
It was a very strange experience for me when my project started to get attention and I won some awards and publications because while my professional life was catapulting, like this project put me on the map professionally, my personal life was completely falling apart. I just lost both of my parents and I was not even 30. It still amazes me, because as a kid you think they're going to be there forever, naively. And, but being able to see the life that my project went on to have, and I found, the more that I talked about my family and this experience, the more people wanted to listen. That was really encouraging to me, and it truly made me believe in what we could do as storytellers with images.
Adriane, and you, and that same question, like, you'd talk about maybe some of the early, success is a tricky word that we're bumping into, but some of the first time your images were recognized and praised and found some distribution and maybe even had some effect on the world.
I mean, I think a bit like Nancy is a large part of this after you take the photographs is having those photographs seen and like getting people to care about your photographs. Like that in itself is a success, right? Like, it's not just if you won an award or if you got your book published. Both of those things are the same thing, which is more people than you could have ever have hoped are giving your images attention and giving the story attention. So for me, that was what was really cool, was that I could go somewhere that nobody could find on a map and take photos, and that those photos could go out and be seen globally. That's
not only that,
an incredible feeling.
But we are bombarded with images every single day. I don't know how many billions of photographs are taken and put out there. I mean, you turn your phone on and boom, you're bombed. Okay. But to have your pictures, know that your pictures made somebody stop and look at them for a while and actually take a moment and pause, okay, that they actually were noticed amongst all that noise. That right there is an accomplishment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the success. And I mean, for Nancy, like, I'm sure it's so, like, I've walked into other people's homes and there is your book sitting on their coffee table.
That's so cool.
And like, how cool is that like you made people care about that story to the point where they're bringing your book into their homes.
Well, and I think,
like, that is incredible.
For me, I remember someone said to me, like, what does success look like to you? And I was like, success to me is kind of making people have the conversations, reframe this narrative around death, and appreciate what it means to live. Because outside of photography, that was a big takeaway that I experienced with losing my parents. And you know, we're photographers, but we're also individuals and we're humans, and I'm a mother now. And the beautiful thing about photography is when you can really, it can be that catalyst for awareness and ultimately change. And I don't know. My hope was that in publishing the book, I would give people a tool that they could resource and maybe not wait until someone they loved was dying to kind of have the awareness and the understanding that life really was short, and to just, you know, appreciate what you did have.
During this project, did you ever refer to Richard Avedon's photographs? Because he photographed his father dying.
I'd heard about that work. I didn't. I really. It was interesting. A lot of people reached out and would send me referrals. They'd say, like, "Oh, have you seen Larry Sultan's work?" And some other photographers, Phil Toledano, and that was really helpful because I felt less alone. Like, I wasn't the only photographer exploring this deep dive into your personal family life. But then I got a lot of emails from photographers who had wanted to do something like this with their families. And it was interesting. A lot wrote to me and were like, I couldn't have done it. I don't know how you did it. I couldn't have done it. Like, I'm like, I don't know how I did it. I was just there, and I was just going through the motions.
Such a big aspect of this, like you said before, is like you were not taking those photographs to be seen, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like we were sitting there in school 10 years ago writing out how our lives were going to go. And we're like, oh, well, I'm going to spend the next 5 years doing this. I'm going to publish a book. Okay, that year I'm going to win World Press. Then my career will be made. And after that, I'm going to, like, it's...
So do you expect that, I mean, how do you match what your expectations of your photo career would have been like and to what they really were or are? I mean, and it doesn't have to be from this perspective of 2020, but even along the way, I mean, were there moments where, where it was like, this is not exactly what I had signed up for, or at all what I signed up for, or it is? I mean, how does reality match with expectations?
I don't know about you, but I tried to trust in the process. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I don't have any expectations. So I can't disappoint myself if I don't have expectations, and just keep the bar really low. And then
bulletproof.
I'm the negative Nancy out of Nancy's side. I think I had a mentor who was basically, he told me, you're not a photographer unless you're photographing. Like, if you wake up today and you go and take pictures, you're a photographer. If you wake up tomorrow, you don't take pictures, you're not a photographer. It's like, if you want to continue.
He wouldn't think I was a photographer today.
But it's great, but you don't have to be today. But if you want to be a working photographer, you have to wake up every day and go take photos. And I thought that was great advice because, people aren't always going to care about your photos. You're not always going to go out and take the best photos. But, like, if you want this to work, you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to go take photos. So that's, I think, something I tried to take on board, which is like, again, you're doing this for yourself. If this is the life you want to live, this is what it's going to take. And then you can't really question that process too much after it.
Well, and it's you get into this industry, I think, because you love, at least this part of the industry, because you love to tell stories. You love to use photography as that tool. It's how you see the world. It's how you process everything. You certainly don't get into it for the money or the fame or the lifestyle.
I actually asked, I had coffee with another photographer the other day.
Yeah.
And I regularly get emails about a lot of young women who want to be photographers and looking for advice. And I was like, well, how do you respond to these emails?
Yeah, I get those emails too.
So I'd be interested to see how you respond to these emails. But she said, I always respond and I just say, you should become a photographer if you can't do anything else.
What?
Like if you
What does
have
that
to.
even mean? Oh, yeah. Oh, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. You're not going to be happy doing anything else.
Yeah.
Except being a photographer. And I think that there's some truth to that. Yes, if you're not happy waking up every morning, going through the grind, taking those photos, then do something else.
Putting yourself out there, like hustling.
Yeah.
Believing in yourself, especially when other people don't believe in you.
Or don't care.
Yeah, it can be a really lonely profession.
Yes.
But that's
I thought it was interesting to hear her reply. But I'd be curious what
my
you
reply
say.
is different. I try to make time because I feel like there were people who made time for me when I had those same questions. And I usually say trust in the process. You'll get out what you put in. So push yourself, try to make opportunities for yourself. If you're not getting assignments, self-assign and get yourself moving and shooting and learn. There are so many ways to grow and develop and to make a career for yourself, and so many different paths, zigzaggy paths you can take to get to that certain point. It's not necessarily reliant on an editor or a publisher. That's kind of the beauty of digital photography and the internet. You can just really put yourself out there. So I try to encourage them. I'm like, but the reality is I hustle a lot. I'm constantly in touch with editors. I see news. I wanted to shoot news for a little while. So if I saw on the news something happened, if I didn't have an assignment, I would still go and try to shoot it in some way. Or it actually took off the pressure. I was like, how can I show up and do something a little bit differently than everyone else? There's no pressure. I'm not actually sending these to anyone. So that when the call did finally come, I was confident that I was like, no problem. I can shoot that. And I'll figure it out.
It's just not a hike in the Adirondacks down a marked trail. It's more like bushwhacking in Congo.
Yes.
Are things more or less how you professionally, financially, and in terms of the hustle, is it what you expected? Is it still what you expected? Do you think there would be a moment where after 10 years of working your butts off and finding some success that things would come a little easier?
I think there are some people who are like, I will only shoot this one kind of thing. I won't shoot other things. And they sometimes get themselves into trouble because maybe that thing drops off. I know people who are like, I would never shoot a wedding. And in my mind, I'm like, you know what? It would be nice. I have shot weddings, and yes, it's not as sexy as some of my other assignments, but it paid well. It was joyful, and it has now allowed me to go on and work on my own projects. And it's another freaking tool in our tool belt. That's how I've always seen it. And I think pride can get in the way sometimes, and there's ego can get in the way. And I think being able to survive in this industry, at least for me, a large part of it has been diversifying. And right now, I'm 34, and there are so many younger, talented photographers hustling harder than I hustle now, and they're getting the work and I'm not. And that's okay, because I had to, go down that path to prove I've proven myself already. But now I'm starting to think about, well, how can I use my photography in another capacity, whether it's teaching also. And that's why it's so interesting what you said about, like are you a photographer if you're not shooting, like shooting every day? I'm like, well, I think about that all the time. I'm like, I'm a storyteller. I think that's where I've landed. Like photography is my tool through which I tell stories, but I also can, I try to do other things now too.
There's like the industry that keeps changing that you have to keep up with. But then there's also your life that keeps changing and then you have to keep up with.
And your life sometimes exists outside of the industry.
Sorry, what?
There's more to life than photography.
That's kind of the perfect segue.
Your identity is more than just a photographer.
But it wasn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And you kind of get stuck in the flow of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a conscious flow. And that's like a fine flow when you're 24 and, I had a mattress on the floor of wherever. And that was my life. And my life was photography. And I woke up every day and I maybe made it back to that mattress every night if I wasn't in a tent. And that was fine. And you roll with it and you go with it. And then
it makes you who you are today.
100%. And that was what I expected and I wanted out of my career at the time. But then your life changes, right? I mean, do I want to be sleeping on the mattress with no AC when it's 105 degrees out for the next 6 months? Not really. Like
you'll do it, but
but I think you have to keep up with both. You have to keep up with the changing industry.
That suffering was part of the attraction to some degree. I mean that hardship that brings.
I wouldn't say that. I would say.
Doesn't it make your pictures better? No.
No. No, it does not.
So here we are in 2020, but 2019 was a pretty big year for both of you. Needless to say, big events that will change your lives going forward. Nancy had a baby boy, and Adriane was in a plane crash
and walked away.
Well,
no, okay.
Walked is a strong word.
That's a strong word, but you know what? Yeah. You're sitting here today, and you're going to walk out.
But she took on some very serious
Correct.
injuries.
Yes,
and thank God she's here with us.
Yes,
but it's going to have you reevaluate everything, needless to say. And, you have some physical limitations that will change the way you do photos. And motherhood changes everything. So let's jump on this subject in the 5 minutes that we have left. Yeah. But no, do you want to look forward to project the next 10 years to see what you would like to do or what they might happen?
I always thought that I was really scared about motherhood. I was scared of the sacrifices and the compromises I was going to have to make to my career and my identity as I knew it. And I thought while being pregnant, everything was just going to completely fall apart. And I was throwing everything I had worked so hard over the last 10 years on away. And I think I had to go through that to then be open to the universe and to see what could happen because great opportunities came about. And I'm trying to trust in the process. And yes, my son, I will have limitations now. I can't just pick up at a moment's notice and go do some crazy assignment somewhere cool. And that's okay. I'll have other opportunities will come up. When the time is right. And you know what? I'm kind of finding that like I did with my parents, sometimes you just have to photograph what's in front of you or what's in your backyard or what's downstairs in the crib. And those changes. I think, I don't know what the next 10 years hold. I still can't believe what has happened over the last 10 years. I can't believe I've only known you for 10 years because I feel like I've known you for a lifetime.
I have many lives.
Yeah, and then you. Oh my gosh. I mean, were there any surprises in 2019 in your career path? And did anything throw a wrench in the journey?
Well, actually, I was thinking about this the other day because I've been trying to make sense of everything that's happened within the last few months. One of the last assignments I did before my injuries, I was in a refugee camp in northern Uganda, speaking with South Sudanese women who had gone through many different forms of sexual violence. And while I was there, I was talking to some of the doctors. And a lot of the women didn't come for psychological counseling, but ended up getting psychological counseling when they came to the clinic. And so I was talking to these doctors that were speaking with the women, and the doctors were saying, generally, the South Sudanese women responded really well to counseling. And I was like, that's quite interesting. This is a global issue. Like, why do you think these women respond so well to the counseling? And she told me that these women didn't have the same expectations as Western countries, that their lives were going to go back to being the same way that they were before. And I know that seems like such an obvious thing, but that's something that I've been trying to figure out now, because people always think that when something bad happens, the end goal is to get back to who you were before. And it just seems like such an obvious thing that, of course, that's not going to be the chance. And I'm sure there are professionals in this industry that are going to laugh at my assessment of this. But one of the things after my accident, because I have major injuries to my left arm and leg, was, and I was thinking this to myself, and other people would say this to me, doctors would say this to me, is like, don't worry, you're going to go back to how things were before. And I was like, what a lie. Like, of course they're not going to go back to how they were before, but like, you have to be okay with that, and you have to understand that. And so like, that's, I think, where I am now, is accepting that I'm not going to be who I was before. And, that's not a nice outcome. That's like not a nice thing, because many people, like the women I was talking to in this refugee camp, had gone through horrific forms of sexual violence, and that's not their fault. And the trauma that I experienced was not my fault. I'm not trying to compare the two, but this idea that you're going to be who you were before a traumatic incident is a bit silly.
But in a sense, isn't it also part of the process to have something to hang on to as a goal? Because when you're going through what you went through, or your things between your parents and having a child, reality and all the stability is out the window. It's gone. So it seems to me that in many cases, you would need that normalcy again as a direction, as something, a goal to get to, even though you may not get there. But by reaching for that is how you get to where you will be and find your new route. For some people, that's just
I think
a thought.
it's probably a balance. Like you're not a completely new human.
No.
And it's a perspective shift.
But
you can't just let go and say, I'm not going to be who I'm going to be. It's over. You need a goal.
Exactly. You're not, I think this idea that we can just drop traumatic things that happen to us and be cured, right? Which is like, I've processed this, I'm okay with it now, and I'm going to move on. I don't know if
until 3 hours from now when you hit the wall again. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if that's...
and maybe there's like a benefit, like I have to find the lemonade in these lemons, like in my mind. Like I can't believe I'm devastated for what you went through, but I am also so unbelievably amazed by how you've come out on the other side. I saw you a week after the crash, and you were in a completely different place, and you've survived and you've thrived. And I don't know, I think it's going to, I look at my family losing my parents and going through traumatic loss like that, and how I moved forward and what good came from the bad. And while this is a detour in the path that you had created for yourself, you've never been one to get stuck in your tracks and not find a new way forward. So I don't know. Maybe the new way forward is as a bionic woman.
Is photography going to be part of the future?
Probably, but I just don't know what that's going to look like yet.
Mm-hmm.
And
you said probably, so it's not definitely.
Probably,
yeah,
not definitely. I mean, it's part of who I am. Is it going to be as prevalent in my life as it was before? I don't know. Maybe. Like, could be 100%, could not be. I think I'm trying to keep everything open. And I think a part of that is like, oh, I have to deal with life for a minute, which I think is probably a bit about having a child as well. It's like things happen in life and in your career. Most of the time, you don't have too much control over.
We've wrestled a little bit with this question and how you approach a question like this. Did you expect that you would have to fight against any kind of entrenched sexism in this business when you started out? And has that been the case? Let's say, for example, in your case, Adriane, maybe you didn't get an assignment because the editor thought, well, this is not for a woman to handle. Or did you get pigeonholed to some degree after working on a project with your family into family issues or anything along those lines?
You know, it's hard to know. It's hard to know if you don't get an assignment for a specific reason, or if someone doesn't think you're capable for a specific reason. I think there were definitely moments early in my career when maybe actually really in relation to other photographers, I think some people maybe didn't take me as seriously, potentially because I was a woman or that I was young, which only fueled me more to want to prove that they were wrong. I think what I came to realize was that, I think when people would ask me if they felt like there were any disadvantages being like a female photographer in this industry, I was always really surprised because I felt like I actually think there's a lot of advantages, and which are disadvantages for men. Like, I think people often, maybe because they didn't take me as seriously, people would inherently kind of trust me more, or colleagues wouldn't see me necessarily as like a threat. Not that I was a threat, but I don't know. I feel very lucky. I feel like there have been many women who have come before me who have paved a path to allow someone like me to have the opportunities that I've been able to have that maybe they didn't have while they were coming up. One of the things I was most terrified about having a child was suddenly being a photographer with a mother and a photographer with a child, because in the industry, often people keep that pretty secret, worried that they're not going to be hired because, they're not going to be available because of this child. I would rather decide for myself if this assignment or this project makes sense given my circumstance, than someone else deciding for me. I'm still kind of figuring it out, but I've also found that people are becoming more and more supportive of working mothers. I don't know, maybe.
But it's just one of those things, like, no one ever asks the man when he goes back to work the next week why he isn't home with his newborn, right? It's of course there are physical reasons why women need to be.
Like, I spoke at a conference and someone was like, oh my gosh, like, how much do you miss your son? Because I left him behind. And I was like, oh, I mean, like, I miss him, but I'm so glad to be here and talking about photography and like still getting to feel like not just my old self, but that piece of my identity is still, motherhood is just another piece of my identity. Mm-hmm. I'm many things, and feeling like that is possible. I could be a working photographer and a mother.
Well, I think, like Nancy said before, there have been some incredible women that have come before us that have paved the way. My perspective comes from living and working in Africa. And, that brings a whole nother set of kind of cultural rules and norms. And a lot of what I've seen where I'm working is huge economic divides and racism, not just towards white or black people, but I mean, there's a lot of racism in Africa towards Chinese people or Indian people. So this is, to me, all wrapped in with gender. And I know that in our industry, women are underrepresented, and it is still a male-dominated industry. But I think at the end of the day, what we are fighting for is diversity of storytellers, because each of those individuals is going to have a unique way of storytelling, and those individuals will be able to reach audiences that we can't otherwise reach. So do I believe there should be more women in the industry? Yes, of course. But I do think we also have to think about how other people sit in this world besides just gender.
Adriane, thank you so much. By the way, we expect to be seated with the two of you in 10 years from now with some exciting stories here. Nancy, thank you so much. Adriane, thank you. And may you continue to heal quickly and completely Again, it's great to see you.
Thank you.
If you want to see more of Adriane and Nancy's work, you can follow the links posted within our show notes for today's episode. And remember, today's podcast is in association with this year's International Women's Day, March 8th, 2020. You can check out the B&H Explorer website for additional content related to this rather timely topic. And are you not a regular subscriber to our podcast yet? If not, all you have to do is head on over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, or Spotify and sign up. It's a freebie and it won't cost you a dime. And you can always find this on the B&H Explorer website as well as the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. For now, my name is Alan Weitz, and on behalf of John Harris and Jason Tables, thank you so much for tuning in today.